Hey guys, how's it going? Fate Strange Fake, the latest installment into the Fate anime catalog. This show's release caused more than a bit of a stir for a handful of reasons. Some good and some kind of bad. But by and large, I think that most people who watched it through to the end thought that it was a pretty enjoyable ride all the way through, right? So what I kind of want to do today is just kind of like air out my thoughts on Fate Strange Fake, and maybe answer some questions, and maybe like kind of answer the general question of just like, is Fate Strange Fake worth watching, whether you're a Fate fan or not? Because that seemed to be a big point of contention for a lot of people when this series first aired. All right, so let's get into it. I kind of want to start by addressing the big elephant in the room about this whole series. And that was the release schedule, right? One of the most damning things about Fate Strange Fake, like, as a whole, is that, and it kind of turned a lot of people off to it, was that the project overall had let's just say, a wacky release schedule for a very long time. They released an hour-long episode 0 that was meant to build up the world and kind of set the stage for everything that's about to go down. And honestly, that episode 0 is awesome. Beautifully shot, beautifully animated. It does a fantastic job of setting up the world. It has a lot of like really fun fan servicey characters like Gilgamesh there. And it was, I think it served its purpose very, very, very well. And honestly, it was more like a mini motion picture for anything like more than like an actual episode. It was all just establishment of like, okay, here's the world that we're going to be in. Buckle up, it's going to be good, right? And it was awesome. It was a fantastic, nice little like teaser for people to like sink their teeth into. And that was in 2023. Yeah. And then they kind of just didn't touch the series for a very long time. They built up a shit ton of hype around it. All of it was really cool. They set up a lot of really nice things, and then they just let it come to a nice room temperature on everything. You know what I mean? It was they had set everything up to be really, really fun and interesting, and then they kind of just let it sit. And then, after over a year of waiting, they finally released something new. And that was that with the Fate Grand Order, brand new Year's Servant 2025, we got Richard, the main character for Fate Strange Fake, as a servant. A summonable servant. And so there was all of a sudden a lot of hype kind of built up. They reignited that fire. It was really good. And then they released the first episode as well around that same time to help establish his character, get people really familiar with the character of Richard the Lionheart. Good design. He looks really cool. He was a decent unit on release in FGO, so people were like, oh, this guy's fucking awesome. And then like he had his third ascension, which had like a fucking lion head, which was crazy. And people were like, oh, is this going to tie into this? And then that was confirmed to not be the case, but still. They built up more and more hype around it, and it was good. And they just kept building it. It was fantastic. Everything was like looking really, really good. And then they didn't do anything with it for another year. It just kind of like they just let it sit again for an entire year. And it took years of breadcrumbing and teasing with these things for the series to finally actually air. Now, this is because the series was apparently in production hell, getting pushed back and delayed constantly. Like, it was supposed to have come out sometime in 2024, then in 2025, until eventually airing early in 2026. Now, for people who picked up the series, for people who kind of like picked up this series, there's no attachments to Fate, and they just kind of like started watching it weekly or watching it all at once after it had aired, this is all completely irrelevant information. If you're just a casual Fate fan or anime watcher, then this is just another anime series that you may or may not enjoy, right? For people deep in the trenches of this franchise, though, this was agony, because Fate Strange Fake is kind of like a white whale series in Fate, because it is not published in English at all. And there are unofficial translations for it that are out there, but they are known to kind of just vanish. They get hit pretty hard by copyright hammers, constantly. And then the anime series was in production hell for so long that we didn't know if it was actually going to ever get properly made. And then additionally, those that kind of like read it, those that read it unofficially or otherwise swear by its quality. So like, that's kind of like, how do you say it? It's chasing the dragon. You were given the hit and you were told by people how amazing this thing was. Oh my god, it's so good. The writing's so good. The ideas that they're playing around with are really interesting and fun. And then there's no way to actually consume this until now. And so, with all those factors in place, this series now has a massive, I'm talking gargantuan pair of boots that it needs to fill. So, did Fate Strange Fake deliver? Absolutely. So let's talk about it like this. First off, my credentials, because I'm sure if you've never seen my content before and you clicked on this video, you might be interested. I'm a Fate fan, obviously. I watched the whole thing with my community weekly on Tuesdays. It was great. And I'm, unfortunately, very critical of the Fate franchise, to the point that I've been called a tourist, a LARPer, or whatever other fucking crazy Reddit word that people are throwing around. Well, you don't really have a good argument against what the person is saying, so you're just going to say this instead in hopes that it'll insult them to the point where they actually just, like, give up or go cry or something. I don't know. Those are words I don't use. Those are words that kids use. God, I'm just now realizing how dog shit quality, the lowest quality images, because these were not like this when I posted them here. Whatever, fuck it. Here's kind of like the general breakdown of Strange Fake, without going into too much in the realm of spoilers. In a place that is totally not Las Vegas, called Snowtown, a Holy Grail war... Is it Snowtown? No, it's Snowfield, right? Snowtown, Snowfield, Snow something. Snowland. A Holy Grail war is being set up to be performed, except this time, for this Holy Grail war, there's something weird about it. Not like every other Holy Grail war in the franchise that goes exactly how a Holy Grail war is supposed to go, right? Well, we get introduced to a character who's conducting the war for his own dubious means, and a bunch of characters who summon their servants, along with some brief glances into their motivations and how they are, kind of like how they are as people. Notable mentions here are Flat, who is a minor character in other Fate franchises, and a student of Waver Velvet, a very popular Fate character. Tine, who is Gilgamesh's master and wishes to restore her people, and Tsubaki, who is the trauma vacuum character of the series, and has the singular coolest servant in the entire show. It's awesome. Oh, and then there's also Jester, who's like a fucking super vampire called the True Ancestor. There's a bunch of other characters as well, but we'll get into them. We'll get into them eventually, maybe. The thing that's quote-unquote weird about this war is that normally in a Holy Grail war, only seven servants are supposed to be summoned by 7 masters, and in the basic 7 classes. But Dead Apostle? Yeah, sorry. Dead Apostle Ancestor, True Ancestor, I got my fucking Fate bullshit mixed up. Thank you for correcting me. But for some reason, 7 more servants have been summoned by 7 other masters here as well. And this creates a dynamic of fake servants and true servants. What this means for the series, you'll have to find out on your own, but we've seen something similar to this happen before in Fate Apocrypha. Though, mind you, the conditions that led to those two things are completely different, and so that connection is questionable at best. We're also introduced to Ayaka and her servant Richard, who are the main characters, which isn't abundantly clear. So something I think that is very impressive about Strange Fate, kind of just off rip, is that other series kind of failed to do this, is having too big of a cast. There are a shit ton of characters in Strange Fate, and all of them are relatively complex in their own motives, desires, and decisions. Some of these characters don't get a lot of screen time, but don't really need it because you can kind of just figure out what they're up to off of their vibe. A good example of that is somebody like Enkidu. You don't need to know much about Enkidu to kind of get the idea behind what Enkidu's about, right? So, like, I don't know. Yeah, Enkidu and his master, his master's a dog, like a chimera dog, and Enkidu is kind of like an off character. If you know FGO, you recognize Enkidu, but you don't really need to know anything about him to kind of get the vibe of what Enkidu's whole deal is. You see him fight Gilgamesh, you see him, like, interact with Gilgamesh, and then he's just in nature being, like, a traditional, like, kind of generic sage character. He's one of those characters, he's cool, but, like, you don't need to know much about him, but you get the vibe. Meanwhile, others that are kind of newer to this and that are going to need a bit more explaining, and they get that in spades, are characters like Sigma and the new Hassan, right? The series does a great job of balancing its cast and is, giving you enough to understand why these characters are willing to do what they're doing, because this is a death battle to the, fighting and killing other people, right? Also, what isn't said in words for this series is made up by the visual storytelling. Lighting does wonders to illuminate things about these characters when they're interacting or monologuing. And the background work for this does wonders for the storytelling. It's genuinely, how this all culminated and became one giant, really interesting series is super cool. And it's very clear that, a ton of thought was put into each single area that people appear in to, really sell every single scene. And, that isn't to say that, there are characters in this that aren't, lacking development or anything like that. Let me show you a perfect example of a character who does not get any development at all, and it's just okay, what? This is Ryder. She shows up for a single episode. She says that she hates that guy, and then, doesn't appear for the rest of the series. She kind of just shows up, says fuck that person, and then leaves. And, this is because they're going to get more relevance in the later half of the series, but right now, there's not much that we know about what's going on with her. And, the same for that can be said about Berserker, who appears for 2 episodes, I believe, in total, flexes on everybody, and then fucks off somewhere else. But, by and large, the characters as a whole are really well delivered on, and if I had to make one complaint about a character that I wish they had done more with earlier on, rather than waiting for the second season to really get into it, it would be Ayaka, who is meant to be the main lead. They kind of sell it that she's supposed to be the main character, right? The only reason I'm really singling her out for that is because everyone else, I'm singling her out over everyone else is because she does feel like she's supposed to be the main lead, and with that there comes a loftier weight to be put in the mind of her development. And we got some of it. We got some interesting stuff with her, but little tidbits here and there. But and maybe some implications that she has something to do with the Einsburns and the clock tower, and that she herself isn't a mage, even though we know that isn't really true. Fan art has done a number to help people understand what her deal is, weirdly enough, but if you don't know what's going on with her, then with the fan art, then it's very confusing why she got command seals all over her. I don't know what that's about personally, because I'm not that caught up on the Strange Fake of the visual novel or the graphic novel. And then she has the other additional thing where she's being chased by the ghost of Little Red Riding Hood, which is implied to act like the immortal snail, where if it catches up to her it'll kill her or something. We get these little details with her and a lot of mystery surrounding her, and she herself is kind of a flat character for a lot of the first season. I just wanted more. I wanted more to latch onto with her, because I feel like we don't get a lot. Mind you, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because she works well as a foil for the more larger-than-life character that is Richard, and then the two of them have some really great moments together because of this, but I just wanted to kind of I wanted a bit more from her. And this is 100% one of those moments where the light novel likely does more to flesh her out, but couldn't get it implemented due to time constraints. But, I look forward to seeing whatever they do in Season 2. I'm just going to do a small... This is completely unrelated to this. I'm just going to do this out of spite for people. Any of you who are out here saying Coor, and yes, it is pronounced Coor like the light. I think that all of you look pretentious and douchey when you do it. Every single one of you. Just say Part 2 or Season 2. You know what Coor means? Coor just means part. It means broadcasting season. It's broadcasting season in Japan. Nobody thinks that you're cool because you're saying this. You look pretentious and douchey, you want to be cinephile. It's Season 2. Say Season 2. And with that out of the way, I'm really trying to rack my brain as to whether or not there are any characters that don't really work with the show. And right now, I really can't think of any of them. The only character I'm kind of whatever on is Archer's master. His name is Baz. I think it's Bazdalot is how you pronounce it. He looks like a mafia man with glasses and demon eyes, and I wish I knew more about him or what his deal was, but we kind of don't get very much with him. It's not to say that he's bad or anything, but he just doesn't really get any screen time, and so it's kind of forgettable. His design isn't exactly like super cool either. He does man fight fucking Herc at one point though, which is really interesting. You know, I wish that there was more. Because yeah, the 10 minutes of screen time that he does get are crazy cool. But then I don't know. We don't really get much on that. Another character like that is like Berserker's Master, who gets all of, I think, like 5 minutes of screen time, and in those 5 minutes, you just kind of comes off as like a very generic mage. But, you know, like Berserker, I think that we're gonna learn more about her in the next part instead. But you know, all in all, I'm relatively impressed. Like, we have a guy that is just his name is literally John Strangefake. He's legitimately just named John Strangefake. And he is one of the most compelling characters in the entire show. And there's even characters that, that I thought I would hate, like Jester. Like, a character like Jester is a character that normally I just don't like. But he's such like a bastard and deserves to die 1,000 deaths, but is endlessly entertaining to watch because of how much of a bastard he is. He's just evil. He's just like an evil bastard, and I really, really am into it. I kind of like him. I like the fact that he's just a dick. There's nothing super special about him. He's just an asshole, and I respect it. I respect it. I know, and that's not to say there isn't more to his character, because I know there is, and that was revealed in the very like last part of the show. But I like it. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. The idea of like a vampire that's grown bored with existence, and so now they just kill people to kill time and torment others. The dude's he's a fucking Cenobite. The fucker's a Cenobite, and I love it. So the cast is good. The setting of it being in America is also good. I ain't even talked about the music, which is immaculately good. Dude, that intro song is, oh, it's so good. And the animation is phenomenal. This brings us to one big issue that people had with Fate Strangefake on release. What was it, chat? What was the problem? What was the problem with this show on release? Do you guys remember? What was the big issue that was happening? What were people doing when this show came out for the first time? The Glazers? Oh, quite the opposite, my friend. Crunchyroll animation quality. Dude, okay. I don't know what Crunchyroll be doing, but I'm gonna guess spoiling. Oh man, you guys are so close, but not right. Everything was good, and what did people do about it? Motherfuckers were gatekeeping. Gatekeeping. This is the most I have seen in recent memory of people in this community actively fighting against the general public, telling them to go away and not watch their anime. Like, I'm gonna say this, I was not involved in like the Fate scene when Apocrypha dropped, right? APOC was my very first Fate series, and I watched it and I got hooked. So if anyone is like an older head than I am and saw this kind of reaction back then, just, you know, let me know. And if you avoid anime, Reddit, and Twitter, which you should, you may have kind of missed this, but there was a I didn't have a choice to miss this because I'm so entrenched in the community. There's a literal tsunami of people telling other people not to watch Fate Strangefake because you wouldn't understand anything that is happening in it. The show is too referential to Stay Night, and so without the context, you won't get the full experience. You should never start consuming Fate content unless you've read the original Fate Stay Night visual novel, and this is a terrible entry point into the Fate series because it is not how a Holy Grail war is being. It's about how a Holy Grail war is being weird, and you need to get the context as to why it's weird. This show won't explain anything to you, so unless you can give me a dissertation on Velmer, Alaya, and the Root, every version of Mystic Eyes, and write the kanji for Say Hi Senso with your non-dominant hand blindfolded, you shouldn't be even looking upon this anime Crunchyroll page. And before anyone says that this is an exaggeration, I want you to know, I had people in my chat room while we were doing watch-alongs, coming in and saying this was not a good entry point for the series. This is people actually coming in and acting as if this show was not. You shouldn't watch this. Don't watch. Do you not know Fate? You shouldn't watch this. Oh my God, you're gonna be so confused that you're gonna hate this. You're gonna hate it. You'll hate this if you don't know Fate at all. Like I like to play things up a little bit for the funnies, right? This was not an exaggeration. People were actively trying to talk. It was like people trying to talk someone out of jumping off a building. Like, don't watch this. You'll have no idea what you're doing. It's just like, it's so like, oh, this is so bad. You can't even believe all these things that are happening. How can you get onto this without the context? This show explains everything that you need to know about the world concisely and clearly in the first episode, and then sprinkles additional information in as needed. I have several friends that are not into Fate, right? This is a very key point to some of my content, that I have a lot of friends that are not into Fate, because I use them for content by exposing them to bits and pieces of Fate and then seeing them react to it. I have my buddy Nines, who's not into Fate at all, and I have my buddy Dilly, who is not into Fate at all. Nines at least plays other gachas. Dilly is not like that. But both of them watched Fate Strange Fake, and both of them really, really enjoyed it. You have somebody who has a light knowledge of it, and then someone who does not have any knowledge of it. And both of them were like, dude, that shit was fucking heat. The show itself, it has references, right? The show has references to other Fate media in it. Funny enough, the most meaningful of these isn't even a reference to Fate Stay Night at all. Like, all of these motherfuckers were telling people they need to know before they can get into this. Instead, the most meaningful reference that maybe people wouldn't get if they didn't know any other Fate series was the King's Banquet from Fate Zero, a series, mind you, that these same people say is bad. And this scene, that is an entire reference, it's an entire recreation to Fate Zero. It is done so that it's a reference to Fate Zero, and it recreates it in a way that having the context amplifies the message, but explains enough of what is going on while you're watching it that you don't need the context. And that's kind of the general vibe of the quote-unquote necessary prior reading that people are saying you need. They will show you something or name drop something in this show that to a hardcore Fate fan, you can soy face at. But more often than not, the direct relevance to the plot for that is completely unnecessary. Let's take, for example, somebody like Hassan, right? We know that, generally speaking, in a Holy Grail war, the assassin summoned is supposed to be a member of the 19 Hassani Saba. If you are familiar with Fate Stay Night, you know that Cursed Arm Hassan and his noble Cursed Arm Hassan and you know his noble phantasm Zabaniya, right? He is able to create a replica of somebody's heart and then crush it with his cursed arm, which kills them. We also know that by and large, the noble phantasms are unique, and that the Hassans all have their own unique specialized technique that they are famous for. So, seeing a new character use the cursed arm throws up an eyebrow for people who know that detail, right? A person who hasn't engaged with Fate Stay Night won't get that, but it doesn't negatively impact their experience. If anything, they're like, wow, that was fucking crazy, right? It's much in the same way that the appearance of certain mobs or that summoning a high-level servant results in a rainbow blasting out from the summoning circle. It doesn't mean anything to the average viewer, but an FGO fan will look at it and soy face super fucking hard, right? Hell, I even had some moments where I didn't understand the references at all. Mind you, these were mostly pertaining to the things that were happening for case files. And like how Flat knew this insanely dripped out gentleman on a yacht for some reason, with fireworks going off around him. And, you know, rather than feel like, oh, I'm stupid, I hate this series now because I didn't understand this one reference, boss. I don't get it, boss. Why'd he do that? Why does he know this man with a top hat? I don't get it, boss. rather than freak out like a fucking chimp, I instead was just like, wow, I should go watch fucking Case Files. That seems like I'd be right up my alley. I'm interested now. Who is this guy? Why does Flat know this guy? I kind of want to see what this dude's all about, right? And you know, I personally believe that is the primary reaction you're going to get out of most people, is being like, hey, I'm interested. I want to know more. They've built up the lore pretty well, so I'm kind of interested to see what else is going on in the lore here. Let's go check it out. God damn, why is the quality so dog shit on these? Anyway, it gets worse. The quality gets worse with each slide, and it was fine in the preview. God damn it. Crunchyroll ass picture. I know, right? There seems to be this misconception that if somebody does not understand a reference, that they're going to get frustrated and hate the series or something. I'm pretty sure it's the opposite. At least with the people that I've talked to about it in this, you know, I'm genuinely baffled at the fact that watch order discourse like this is still happening, as if any of you morons have any authority to tell anybody how to enjoy something. Like, the only Fate series, genuinely, the only Fate series I can say you should not start with is Case Files. And that is because Case Files is very deep in the weeds of, like, the fundamentals of magic, and having that extra context beforehand is really helpful. How about Prisma Ilia? Prisma Ilia is so detached from Fate and does its own thing that it genuinely, you can just sit down and watch that if you want to. Watch Season 1 of Aprilia, it's fine. It explores great concepts. It's after Season 1 where shit gets kind of sus. Watch Season 1 and then watch Oath Under Snow. But, like, you know, Case Files is the one I'd be like, maybe don't start with that one. And that's just because Case Files explores and has, like, Case Files, from how I understand it at the very least, has way more to do with, like, the intricacies of magic and bullshit like that, as opposed to, like, normal Fate, which just explores, like, the more engaging thing, which I would say is, like, the Holy Grail Wars. Mind you, I've not seen Case Files, so I can't say, but I remember trying to watch the first episode a long time ago and not understanding it and being like, I'm gonna come back to this. Okay. And also, one other thing I want to say is, and I'm going to say this again, because people are talking about fundamental things, like people not understanding why this Holy Grail War is weird. That was a big talking point. Do you guys remember that? That was genuinely something that people were talking about, being like, yeah, the thing is with this, that is like, this Holy Grail War in particular is really weird, and, like, you know, people aren't going to understand, like, you need to watch Stay Night to understand why, like, this one is weird and Stay Night wasn't, or, like, this one was weird for this reason, like, you know, all of this is just, like, I don't know, this one's an exception, this is the weird one, right? Let's run down the catalog, shall we? Let me see. Let's start with Fate Zero. Let's run down the catalog of all these totally normal, totally normal Holy Grail Wars. Fate Zero had Ongar Minyu, which corrupted the Grail and fucked up everything. Fate Stay Night had servants summoning other servants, and some servants that were still around from Zero, Gilgamesh, interfering with things. Fate Apocrypha had a big Holy Grail War and 14 servants there. Prototype. There's a little girl that becomes a demon god and the Grail is fucked up, dude. The third Holy Grail War. Literally, it changes based on the timeline that's happening. There's no consistent thing that happens with, like, the third one. But Fion does win in one event, which is fucking cool. Fate Extra. BB-breasted boobily beyond boundaries, befuddling basic bureaucracies, and then also whatever the fuck Twice was doing. Twice Peaceman. Whatever the fuck Twice Peaceman was doing. Mooncell AI bullshit. Fate Redline has future bullshit and time travel. It's literally a guy comes back from the past and comes back from the future and influences the past and fucks with things. Fate Samurai Remnant. That's not an actual Holy Grail. It's a fake. It's made of hands. It's weird. And then, you know, whatever the fuck Fate Grand Order is doing. Like, let's not even talk about that. And then there's even other series as well that aren't fully finished, like Fate Labyrinth, Fate Lost Ironrar, Fate Requiem, and all of them also have their own really weird shit that's happening. So I guess maybe the point to make with this is that people who are like, yeah, this one's a weird Holy Grail war. My brother in Christ, there has never been a normal Holy Grail. The closest one to a normal Holy Grail war that we've had is motherfucking the third one that we don't see. The inconsistent, mysterious third Fuyuki Holy Grail war that we don't see, like, what happens with it. And now here's the other thing. Fate Strange Fake does a good job of explaining what you need to know, while leaving a nice little additional thing for people who do know more, right? And shout out to the community, shout out to my community really quick, just all of you in the chat right now, for keeping the consistent gray counter every time she appeared during Strange Fake. That was one of my favorite parts about watching this with my community. So, this takes us to a very basic question. Is Fate Strange Fake worth watching? Absolutely. If you are a fan of the Fate series, then 100% you should watch this, because this is the singular best Fate anime that we've gotten, probably since Unlimited Blade Works. And as a non-Fate fan, if you like fantasy, battle royales, history, good fight scenes, and good character development, then you will enjoy this show. There are enough elements in it that make it entertaining for fighting shonen fans and anime fans who want a little bit more out of their media. So, this is as far from high art, this is far from like high art, but is a genuinely enjoyable series for a lot of people. There was apparently discussions about how this was meant to be a good gateway anime for people to get into Fate, and now, having seen all of the first season, I would be inclined to agree with that. Go check it out, it's really fun. I'm going to give this series personally a solid 9 out of 10. I genuinely love this series. I'm excited to see what the second part does. It's been a fantastic ride up until now. So, with that said, are there any final questions from my community? I love how pretty much every proper/improper Holy Grail war has at some point been fucked up because X Party had a skill issue and couldn't win, so they did X weird shit into the Holy Grail and now it's fucked. I mean, more or less. Could you beat Enkidu and Mahjong? Probably.